I'm Kelly Keena, and I'm part of the educational team here at Underwriters Laboratories, or UL. I'm a former science teacher and a former science instructional coach, and I am currently working on curriculum design and research and evaluation in education. I'm really excited to share our very first module in Xplorlabs, Portable Electrical Power. I'm really excited to dive into this with you all today over the next 45 minutes or so, and leave time for discussion and questions at the end. But first, let me properly bring you into the Xplorlabs by kicking off our webinar with a video, and then I'll come back and lay out our plan for our time together.
Science isn't limited to classrooms, textbooks, and labs. It's everywhere, and it's behind every innovation. UL Xplorlabs puts it in your hands, giving you the power to find real solutions for real problems. While scientists push, pull, smash, and even light fire to every limit, setting the standards that will change tomorrow, you experiment and ask the questions, like, how did that happen? How does this work? And what if? This is UL Xplorlabs, where extreme reactions happen, extraordinary phenomena are explained, exciting solutions are discovered, and exploration is always encouraged. It's not a place, it's an attitude, a starting point for solutions and a springboard for inspired thinkers. It's your chance to explore complex questions, experiment to find the answers, and even share them with the world. So, are you in?
Portable electrical power is just that. It's how we power our very portable lives. So today we'll be talking about lithium-ion batteries and a phenomenon called thermal runaway. The objective today is not to teach the content, but instead walk you all through the module that teaches your middle school science this concept delivered through the context of an issue surrounding hoverboards, which some of you might be familiar with. I'll be showing a few videos, and we'll do best to avoid that awkward silence as we get those queued up. We'll walk through the module the way it's laid out as a tour through the website and to this platform, and highlight all of the features for you. And then we'll save time, like I mentioned, at the end for questions and answers. Before I go too far, I'd like to remind everyone that XplorLabs is a free resource available at ulxplorlabs.org. And that is spelled just like on the screen without the space between the L and the X, ulxplorlabs.org. So if you'd like to follow along on that website as we go through the webinar, this is a great opportunity to kind of bounce back and forth if your brain can work that way. All right, so let's start with who is UL. Since 1894, which was the time of the introduction of electricity, UL has been working toward a safer world. So it's an internationally recognized safety science company who continues to foster innovation by extending and evolving the definition of safety. This is a company guided by a mission to promote safe working and living environments for all people. And this company, UL, works with partners in business, manufacturing, trade, and regulation to advance these ever-evolving safety needs, which is something that is changing and shifting every day as new products are introduced and as technology really ramps up in our daily lives. And so the other part of the company is to look at safety science and then also help engineer solutions solving through science. So around your home or office, you'll most likely see the UL logo on products ranging from electronics to even personal flotation devices or life jackets. I have to say that my first recognition of the UL logo is on light bulbs around my house. So what? So that logo on that product means that UL has certified that specific product to a set of safety standards before it hits the shelves and then your homes. So one example of this in UL's work is around the issue of lithium-ion battery safety. So the two questions really that I have up on the screen there are, what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then how do we solve it, or how can we solve it? So the what is, lithium-ion batteries are catching on fire and causing a lot of safety concerns. So if you've seen the news recently, you've heard about cell phones and hoverboards catching on fire. Now take note of how many battery-operated devices you have around you. right? So lithium-ion batteries are ever present in our daily lives. When batteries malfunction, they overheat, and this is a phenomenon called thermal runaway. This is a rapid, uncontrolled increase in temperature that causes additional increases in temperature that causes these catastrophic fires. So the safety engineering at UL works on solutions to these types of issues by testing batteries and developing those standards. XplorLabs is a way to engage our middle school students in this very process that's happening, this very real world, very relevant, very current process, and how we can solve it. So just like at UL, XplorLabs asks, why do batteries ignite? How do we find that out? How do we keep it from happening again? And how do we design safer products? So the problem that we're trying to solve here when we developed XplorLabs, thinking in that same mindset, is thinking about developing safety science for these products and the company's not-for-profit side. So the company's not-for-profit side works to do research on safety issues in our world and then educate and inform. And that's where our education team is firmly planted. We know that educating a new generation in STEM understandings and skills means that UL will have new innovative minds coming up through the ranks to solve the problems that we honestly don't even know are problems yet. So we want to support the STEM work in K-12 education. And we did our homework, and here's what we found. That middle school is a critical year for inspiring students to not only think, but to aspire to use STEM skills in their lives and future careers. That we see a fall off of interest in science in middle school for multiple reasons. And that globally and across all ages, we see an urgent need for more science literacy, thinking about processing information and critical thinking. So the opportunity here is, how do we leverage natural curiosity and have students at this age, in this middle school years, think about their future and thinking about what excites them and what gets them excited about where they could go in STEM fields. So the hook then are these real-world problems that we have in our UL labs every day. So in partnership with the folks leading this work at UL, the subject matter experts they're called, we have developed XplorLabs along with educational experts and researchers with expertise in this field, in the virtual field, and how we educate online, and then how do we get that into the classroom. So this is XplorLabs. We talk about solving through science, asking middle school students to do what UL is doing. And so our solve through science concept that is ever present in our company is also ever present in our modules. It's kind of exciting, and I have to say, as a teacher, the care that went into this, I was really impressed by. The care about teachers, caring about education, care about creating that next generation of engineers and scientists, and then how we get this resource into classrooms. So just so you know, this is a free program. It was developed to be a free program so that we could offer a resource to all classrooms despite budgets. Understanding that this is offered in a virtual space, it's also developed to be part of the gamut of the way that students interact with online learning materials. So through whole class instruction, through after school experiences, and through independently. This is the idea. Great. All right. So in our design, we really wanted to know, or in our design, we knew that we had to have a resource that was flexible for different settings, that we wanted to create a link from students and practicing applied safety science and engineers. And we wanted to create a self-contained instructional resource that didn't have high-dollar materials to go along with it, and that we wanted students to relate to the problems we're trying to solve, including this problem of lithium-ion batteries. And then lastly, we want this to be firmly grounded in the next generation science standards. And so those correlations are going to be evident throughout all in the platform and then also in the printed materials. And this is what we've gotten the most feedback about, which is really nice. Okay, here we are. It's here, the portable electric power module. We're so excited. This big question, the big question that is going to guide this whole experience is hoverboards. Cool, yes, dangerous? Let's find out. What is it that is going to, what is it? What's the risk? What's the danger? Is it real? Let's find out. And so the problem that we're trying to solve, we need batteries to power our devices, and we want cool ways to move around, but the batteries are catching on fire. So the content then that we have to understand is, what is a lithium-ion battery? How does it power a device? How does it power a hoverboard? How does it work? What are the mechanics of it? And then to understand this phenomenon of thermal runaway and what causes it. Then we get into how the problem is investigated by safety scientists, including videos from the UL lab showing how batteries are tested. And then we talk about how we become engineers to find solutions and how engineers solve problems through design. The basic structure of the module is broken down into 4 sections. So the first section is an interactive video, and I'll explain what we mean by that. The length is about 30 minutes, but it's not intended to be shown for 30 continuous minutes. There's 4 parts to this video. And these are hosted by Matt, who's a practicing UL engineer, and Sydney, who's a college student in industrial engineering. So the video's 4 parts are really, what is it? What do you need to know? How do we do it? And how can you do it? The students then can take that background understanding and that common shared experience and move into 2 virtual product tests based on the way hoverboards are tested and batteries are tested in the labs. And then the last section of it is a series of classroom investigations. And the classroom investigations are offered with lesson plans and lesson plans that are teacher guides and student guides. And then there is a Extend the Learning Classroom Challenge. And this is the part that we really hope to energize everybody today about, and then on down the line. We're really excited about the opportunity to create a community. So that's the big overview of the module. Let's dig in a little bit. The navigation of this is really easy once we get down into 2 really, there are these sneaky little links down in the bottom. One is the menu, and so if you go to that menu, I just learned this is called a hamburger. You can pull up all of the sections of the module and navigate that way. And the second navigation tip I have for you all before we jump in is there's a glossary. And this glossary is persistent and available throughout. And you can, so if you or your students bump up against a term that they're not familiar with, because this is a very context-specific thing, this lithium-ion batteries and thermal runaway and what all we're talking about, there's the glossary available to show you or your students to reinforce some of that piece. Great. All right, so the first part of the video is an introduction to really what lithium-ion batteries are, the anatomy, and then how they work. And so it is about a minute-long video. Sydney and Matt will narrate, and then we have these great animations that illustrate the concepts that are being taught. After the video segment, there will be a screen with hotspots that comes up where the students can deepen their understandings. And so if we go to the next slide, we can see the lithium-ion battery illustration, and then knowing that we can move through those little hotspots where those little pluses are, and then what pops up is a definition along with the recognition of what that part of the battery is. And then there's also a piece here where the students can test their knowledge based on the short video and what they've learned here, and just review some of the information. So we're formatively sort of checking in as we go through this interactive video. The second part of the video, of this interactive video, is about thermal runaway. So we've learned about the lithium-ion battery, and now we're getting into thermal runaway, which is the phenomenon that actually is causing these fires. It's when there's any damage to any part of the battery that can cause a short circuit and then leads to, or when the battery overheats, which leads to more overheating and more overheating and more overheating. So there is a much more eloquent explanation here on the video. We are going to try it again and hope that there's sound. So please and thank you for being patient with us as we go to this. So we'll watch this video. This is a great explanation of how the videos work throughout as well. It's a nice example.
Ever stop to think about how much power is all around us? And how much part of a modern life is having power everywhere you go? Portable electrical power makes life as we know it possible, but it also comes with some dangerous possibilities.
With inventions like cell phones and hoverboards come new challenges. And as we come to rely on more and more battery-powered devices, scientists have to come up with ways to make batteries smaller, faster, lighter, and more powerful without making them less safe or more expensive. And the people who buy them have to trust that these products safely and reliably perform in the ways that they are intended to perform. To be sure of that, we use the process of scientific inquiry.
You know this. Scientific inquiry or investigation is a way to answer questions and solve problems.
First, we ask a question.
Then we do our research.
And from there, we construct some predictions based on what we know. Then we experiment to find out what we can discover. During the experiment, we track what happens,
The data.
and we analyze it to come to a conclusion and find out if our hypothesis is correct or incorrect and why.
And remember, getting it wrong is not a bad thing, because you still figured something out. The process of scientific inquiry is a cycle. Our findings always lead to more questions, and more questions lead to more investigation.
When it comes to figuring out how to create a safer battery, we have to start by understanding the science involved in generating portable electrical power. There are lots of different types of batteries and portable devices, but the most popular is the lithium-ion battery.
They hold more energy, a better charge, and have a pretty long shelf life.
A lithium-ion battery is an energy storage device in which lithium ions move through an electrolyte, a liquid, or a gel, from the negative electrode, the anode, to the positive electrode, the cathode, during the battery discharge, and from the positive electrode to the negative electrode during charging. There are two different electrochemically active materials in a typical lithium-ion battery. A lithium metal oxide for the cathode, and second, a lithiated carbon for the anode. A thin separator keeps the cathode and anode apart while still letting ions move from side to side. The movement of the ions makes electricity that can be used to power devices like cell phones, or when batteries are bundled together in products that need a lot of energy, hoverboards, or even electric cars and buses.
And the other thing that movement makes is heat.
So let me go back into the way that this works. We have the video. There's about a minute video clip where Sydney and Matt explain thermal runaway. And there's lots of animations and lots of illustrations to help with that. And then once the problem is understood, we get to a screen like this that says explain this. That defines thermal runaway with text. So we're doing it with audio, video, and text. So from here, we have this background of what is a lithium-ion battery, how does it work, what is thermal runaway, how does that work, what causes it, and then we enter the UL battery lab to conduct one. We can actually do 4 tests here that our safety scientists actually do in the battery lab. So they are called the XTREME experiments, and the reason they're called this is because they are pretty extreme. So all batteries, when they're manufactured, have safety designs to them. And so what these guys are doing is in the labs, they take these lithium-ion batteries and they try to push them to failure. And what happens is through these tests, they actually can define standards for safety. So UL defines these standards for what actually makes, not what makes, but what qualifies as the safer design, the safer batteries, and that's how they earn that UL seal. And so the 4 choices that you see here are actually videos from the lab, from the test actually being conducted, along with a short explanation by Matt and Sydney of what the test is trying to do. So the crush test is just that. It's a battery that is put between 2 metal plates and it is crushed. And then they watch to see if it is pushed to failure or if it passes that crush test. Because of the design, it's either it can be vented or it can be, there's a lot of other pieces to the battery design that can help there. So then the application of that in this case is, so in a hoverboard, what is the risk of a battery getting crushed? Where are the scenarios or where are the situations that a battery could get crushed if it's inside the hoverboard, if it's inside the encasement? The other one, the next one is a blunted nail test, and this is really where they puncture a battery and see what an internal short circuit will do. And does that lead to thermal runaway? The projectile test is a test to see how effective the mechanism to vent pressure is working, and thinking about, you know, all of these tests and where this really matters. And then the abusive overcharge test, which I think was the most eye-opening for me to learn about. It's a common real-life issue where we might use the wrong charger to plug in something, a charger that didn't come with the device. And then what's the result of that? Or if there is a part in the battery that is intended to keep the battery from overcharging, is that working? Is that, or does that fail? And so thinking about, what does this mean for hoverboards? What does this mean for all of our devices when we walk in, plug them in, and walk away and leave them alone? So there, again, there are designs that keep us in a safe world, and this is a very specific and very rich example of how that world that we live in currently is safer for all of us. I do love this image though, because this is a great, you know, this is what we see when we see thermal runaway. It's a dramatic, it can be a dramatic visual event, and to know that there are really great safe ways that we have learned to test these in really great lab settings is super exciting to think about. All right, so we get to this part 4 of the interactive video, which, by the way, we're still in the interactive video, and we review. What do we know? So how do videos work? What's thermal runaway? How do we engineer safety and do those tests? That lower left corner of your screen, by the way, is a hoverboard that has been a little bit deconstructed. So the cover's taken off, and then what you see laying in front of that is a lithium-ion battery pack. So you can see how many batteries are put together, and we start thinking about what that means and how we make those safer. Great. So from here, we tell the students, now you try. And we put them in an extreme testing zone. And so this is where we move out of the video and into more of the virtual interaction. Once the students see how the tests are done, they get the opportunity to do these 2 tests and analyze the results and then draw conclusions. And then they can go back and do the test in a different way. So they can set the controls to measure different things. So let me tell you a little bit about what I mean. Let's first look at the extreme overcharge test. Again, we just learned that, you know, overcharging is a risk, and also using the wrong charger can be a risk. And so there is, in this particular extreme test, the students go in and they look at how we note the charger and battery connection. In hoverboards and electrical devices, there's an internal component that keeps the electrical current from the charger at a safe level. So in this test, we actually bypass one of these components as if it was damaged or defective, which again is what they do in the lab. All right, so the first thing we do is we charge it. So they pick a charger, They can review the charger, then they choose it, they plug it into the hoverboard, and then they plug it into the wall. And during the charging, we take time and temperature. And you'll notice for temperature that up in the right-hand corner, we can switch from English to metric measurements. We can go from Fahrenheit to Celsius. The students can actually see what's happening internally in the hoverboard as the battery is charging. And this purple knob in the middle is a slider, so they can take off the thermal imaging or they can watch the thermal imaging all the way. Time is sped up, so they don't have to watch this for 15 minutes and 39 seconds to see what happens. But they do note the clock keeps track of how the time is passing. And then once the test is complete, students can look at the data. So they think about what happened, or they look at the results, think about what happened, and make conclusions based on what they observed. Then they get the explanation of the results and an opportunity to run the test again with the same charger or a different charger, so they can start to change things up. Now, the second virtual test is a drop test, and this was one that we highlighted at the conferences that we've been attending. And so at the risk of repeating some of this information, this is so cool, and I would love for everybody to see it. So, as you can imagine, one of the issues with batteries, especially in devices like hoverboards, where kids are using them, they're carrying them around, or I even think of my cell phone, I take it out of my pocket and I put it down. How far can I drop it? What's the risk of dropping it from a foot or maybe 5 feet, right? And then as the safety scientist, how do we predict what people will do with these and then test it to those limits? So how far do we think people will drop a hoverboard? And these are things and big questions that we have to ask about. So when they go into the drop zone, we get the test procedure. It's super simple. Drop the hoverboard, examine it for damage, and then give it a run and see if it works. So here we have the drop zone. There's a couple things to note. One is that the button that says push in the web or in the virtual version of this, you can push that button and you can get it from 1 foot off the table to 11 feet off the table. Now, if you all are like me, you immediately go to 11 feet, which a lot of our students will do as well. And then you drop it, it falls, and then we can look at observations. We observe the outside external casing of the hoverboard. We make note of what has happened. And so in this case, we see the exterior cracked, but it might still run. Do you want to find out if it will? And then you click on run it, run it. It runs a distance. It's going to keep track of all those metrics for you. It's got miles per hour. It's got temperature, and actually, it's got speed, temperature, and then distance. And then from there, you can see what happens. It will tell you. It appears there's no damage to the battery. The hoverboard worked, and the portable power system appears to be properly protected from a drop at a low height. So I didn't grab the screen from the 11-foot drop. I imagine that will be something that everybody will run, not walk to. It's super fun and interesting to see what happens. And then to go down incrementally or to go up incrementally and starting to see what the boundaries of these batteries are and these enclosures are and really how that works. Again, just like what we do in the labs. This is where we get into the classroom activities and how what we envisioned this module comes out of the screen and into your students' hands, into our hands. So the question for us in developing this was looking through and thinking what's the content that needs more support? And then also how can we support the doing of this engineering design process, because there's a whole lot of thinking to that that's not that we have to turn over to the students. So based on what we know about lithium-ion batteries and based on what we know about hoverboards and design, what can we do now in the classroom? So there's 3 investigations here that are all downloadable for you. We start with the baloney test, which is a great name, and there are a lot of people with great aversions to bologna, I am finding out. This is where we get to visualize the energy contained in a single cell lithium-ion battery. And we do that by activating the battery through saline and bologna. Now, why saline and bologna? Because there's actually a huge issue related to these little batteries. These are what power your key fob or your garage door opener, where if they fall out or if kids get a hold of them, young children, and they accidentally swallow them, they can cause great damage to the body and great damage to the tissue in the throat. And so the bologna is actually there as to signify the flesh, and so we can start to see the damage. So there's two purposes in this being the first lesson plan. One is to see the energy, to start to see how energy is contained in a single cell battery, which we see all the time just by turning devices on, but this is seeing it in a different way so we can start getting kids and ourselves really thinking about this. And then the other way, the other reason this is here is because the solution, one solution, and it's not the only solution, to this being a huge health risk is by putting a vinyl sticker on the back of the lithium-ion battery, the button cell battery, so that the saliva doesn't activate the battery. And so it's a very simple solution. It is engineering. It's engineering solutions. It's design. It's all of these things that we're thinking about, and it's super simple. So those are the two reasons we start with the bologna test. Then these next two, the tensile test and durability and the thermal test. These again are taken from the labs and thinking about how we create safer enclosures for batteries to keep them from getting crushed, from getting punctured, and from overheating. So how do we keep the battery safe from internal overheating? And then how do we keep us safe from the surface of the device overheating, and then obviously from this phenomenon called thermal runaway? So these two are really about the students, challenging the students to create an enclosure. They have to test the material and its strength. They have to test the durability of the material, and then they have to make sure it passed the thermal test. The materials involved here are fairly simple and straightforward. For those of you in the colder climates, we use hand warmers that you put in your pocket to go skiing. For those of you, for those of you in the cold climates, you might have access to those in your stores. For those of you in warmer climates, they're really accessible on online, big online shopping places. And then the other instrumentation needed here is a thermometer. We use infrared thermometers, and those are available at the hardware store. So again, getting kids in here to design and think about what they need to put into this based on the knowledge that they have about how lithium-ion batteries function and the protections that they need. My favorite part of this is actually a decision tree that lays out this process once they get into this design. And so here's the key, and this is actually a student page that is offered as a downloadable PDF on the platform. This is where we talk about the tests that we're going to do. Did it pass? Did it fail? Or did it pass or not pass? And do we redesign it? And then did it fail or pass? So it kind of gets us into that mode of thinking of failure not as a dead-end place, but failure as an opportunity to go back and redesign and rethink about our approach, which again happens in everyday practice, in everyday application of engineering solutions. The other thing that is available here for you all is a teacher guide and then student guides. These are all in PDFs. The teacher guide goes into details about the step-by-step process for the labs and for the investigations. And then the student pages are abbreviated versions of those that give students opportunities and places to respond. If you are a science notebook classroom and you use science notebooks, the student pages are intended to be prompts for that work as well. So there's a dual function there. So that is the classroom investigation section of Xplorlabs for portable electrical power. Now, this piece of the module is one that we are we're excited about all of it, if you can tell. But we're thinking that we have a real opportunity here to create a community and to challenge students in their thinking and to hear back from them. So our dreams for this XplorLabs are that it's a conversation, that we have a community that we create for students and for you all. We want this to be a two-way platform and see and hear what you're up to once you've dipped into this resource and started using it. The other piece is based on the recommendations in NGSS and from the National Research Council. We want to give students an opportunity to communicate what they're learning, to communicate and clearly and persuasively talk about what it is that they now know. So, and how they're thinking about this, maybe more importantly. So the two opportunities in the Classroom Challenge are to design a hoverboard safety PSA, a public service announcement through video, through print or text, through drawing, that talks about, from a middle school perspective to middle schoolers, hey, how can we have these and still keep ourselves and our families safe? What do we have to know about this, and what do we have to understand to do this? This actually was inspired by some students that we worked with around this module, and I'm really excited that students will have an opportunity to communicate in this way. The second way is for students to design and sell a hoverboard to the world. So, you know, asking students, what's the next evolution of hoverboards? You know, I grew up in the generation of Back to the Future where, you know, wheels weren't even an option. It was just going to be floating. So what do students see? And now knowing the background and all the mechanics involved, what would they design? So thinking about it not only from a design perspective for what we think is cool, but also from a safety perspective. So we know we want this, but how do we make it a safer thing? So we really want to encourage students to be innovative, to think outside the box. This is what we're hoping, these are the minds that we're hoping are moving up through the ranks and are going to really be solving the problems in the world that we don't even know are problems yet. Again, draw it, write about it, and submit it. And then after this is all done, we'll have a collection. It's never going to be all done. Sorry, let me restate that. Once we get submissions from students in classrooms, what we can do is we can go back in with our students and we can say, wow, look what this group thought of. Look what this group is communicating. We didn't think of that. Or, oh, we thought of that too, but we didn't communicate it. And it actually gives us a way to start bantering back and forth and creating that, deepening that critical thinking when we get into this communication piece. This is the community that we want to establish, and this is what we want to inspire. So again, just to hit on how we thought about using this, we're thinking about this really as a very versatile tool, a very versatile resource. And something that we're really interested in from you all is to hear how you're using it and where you're using it. What context are you using it in? We see it in these spaces, and we envision it being from, again, this classroom to after school program to an independent student who gets really excited about this and wants more. All right, that is a lot of information today, and it's great information about our portable electric power. Again, not intended to be more informative about the content, but more informative about what the platform is, how it functions, how it works, and then what the opportunities are for you in having this free resource available to you. So from here, I'm going to turn it back over to Dennis, and I am going to open it up to some questions or see if any questions came in as we were talking, and connect with you all that way.
All right,
Dennis,
Kelly.
ready?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Thank you very much, Kelly, for going through the entire module with us. That was really informative, and hopefully we can all learn something from this. The first question I have here, and this was a very common question at all of our events that we attended, how can UL publish this resource for educators to use for free? And more importantly, what is the catch?
It's a great question. And so the reason that I really wanted to outline who UL is it's a very mission-driven organization. And mission-driven meaning, how do we create a safer world? And one component of a safer world is education. And so there is a not-for-profit side of UL that creates these resources. There is no catch. There really is not a catch. This resource is an open resource online and available to you all, whether we hear from you or not. I will say, though, that we cannot create these things in isolation. We really need to hear from the educators who are interested in using these and then actually use these resources. And so I would put the plug in for please, please, please let us know what you think. Please send us feedback. Like I said, we're going to be continually developing these modules, and without you all on the ground in practice as experts in instruction, we need you. We need you on our team. And so it's not a catch, but it's a plea, not even a plea, but it's a request. We really want to collaborate with you, and we really want to hear what you think.
Excellent. Okay, next question I have here is, in testing the learning module, did you have students at individual devices or interacting with a classroom smartboard, or how exactly did you go about doing it?
That is a really great question. And so piloting these, we piloted them in classrooms, whole class instruction. So using the videos in the classroom, showing them up on a board with a projector. Then we have some research doing focus groups where it's one-on-one device in addition to small groups and the projected materials. And so we tried to get input from the different ways that we were hoping that this will be used.
Okay, excellent. Next question I have here is, does this work on any computer, and iPads or Chromecast, or is there any particular devices where it doesn't work?
So one of the big pieces of feedback we got almost immediately was that this needed to be available for all devices. And so it's now, it now is working on all devices, including Chromebooks. And so, yeah, and it is my understanding that there are no limitations for the type of device that you can use. But you know, if that is incorrect, because I am not the technical person, we will certainly clarify that. I can say, though, with 100% confidence that we did hear back from folks that it wasn't working on all devices, and we worked really hard to amend that so that it was working on school systems and so that the size of the files actually works on the Wi-Fi bandwidth that you all have available to you. And so that has been remedied.
Okay.
Great question.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. Now, are these modules expected to be used in full, or can an educator use parts of the module in a classroom without missing any key information?
I love these questions. Yeah, that is a great question. The module, Portable Electrical Power, was really designed so that you could pick and choose the material that you wanted. We know that some of you, especially we aim for a bigger group like all middle school, right? We know some of you are really getting into heat and energy transfer. We know that some of you are really looking at STEM design from the very beginning, principles of that. So we know that there's multiple access points into this material. And yes, it was designed that you could pick and choose sections of the videos, just the classroom investigations, just the challenge. So that was designed in that way. I will say that the fire forensics will be more difficult to do because the challenge is really related to the whole experience. So we did try it a couple of different ways, and again, would love your feedback on that. But I will also say that the content in the fire investigation is really rich. And so if that's something that connects with what you're doing in your classroom, then there are ways that you can use it in shorter time periods.
Excellent, great. We are getting comments here about people who are really excited about the fire forensics module that's coming up very soon, which is great. We want to hear more about that. But speaking of future modules, do we have any plans for additional modules that are to come? And what topics are we choosing? Is there a specific reason why we're choosing one topic over another?
Yeah, that is also a great question. So the work that's being done at UL offers us an opportunity to showcase that to the students, and again, give them this real world, real life application of STEM. And so, you know, one of the students that I talked to was really excited about, you know, thinking through working in a battery lab and what that looks and feels like versus, you know, his conception of a scientist or engineer, which he in his head had as a more of a desk type situation. So we're really hoping to showcase the work that's happening at UL. That's one piece of the criteria. How can we create a conduit from your classroom to our work that we're doing, and that's really related to this mission of creating a safer world? And then we look at where the needs are. And I will say that now that we're in the process right now of deciding on a third module, it really is a hard decision. And so again, if there are ideas, one, we would love to hear them. If there are needs that you see, if there are gaps in your curriculum, if there's gaps in the open resources out there, then we really want to know. We really want to hear from you what those gaps are, so we can really help address the need in the field. And I will also say that our interest too is convening teachers and hearing about this firsthand. And so stay tuned for that. We will be discussing and announcing some things, not announcing, but putting some feelers out to you all who are now part and hopefully stay part of our XplorLabs community, and thinking about how we engage, again, you guys, the experts from the field, and thinking about where the gaps are. It's a great question.
Great, great. Yes, we are definitely really proud of the first module and really excited about the second one coming up soon. Last question I have here is, what if I have a high school class? Could they use it? Is this high school material, or is it more so focused on a particular age group in terms of the language and terminology?
Great question. So the short answer is yes. The long answer is, because this is a very specific content, right? Specific to lithium-ion batteries and applies to our heat and energy transfer, and yes, it's applicable to high school, because we all have to learn this very specific vocabulary to learn the content, and it's all explained here in the module. I think it's very relevant for students in high school, and especially students in 9th grade. And then you guys are so masterful at your instruction and how you use resources that I have no doubts that you can apply this even up into the higher grades. There's also some gifted and talented folks who have contacted us, and then one of the groups that we piloted with here in Denver was an introduction to STEM class with the students who are typically unengaged in STEM learning, and so it was used to kind of kickstart and energize and engage them. So again, there's multiple access points, and so that was a longer answer, but the longer answer is yes, or the short answer is yes, you can use this in high school. All right.
That's all the questions we actually have for now.
Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you, Dennis. Thank you for the technical support, and thank you all for your patience as we work through those videos. Again, all of the videos that I talked about are online, immediately available to you, and they're at this website, ulxplorlabs.org. If you haven't put your email into our system yet, my sense is that we have it now, but as you spread the word, there is a place on that UL Xplorlabs website to put in your email. We promise not to riddle you with emails, but we will give you a heads up when different modules are released and when we're looking for feedback and bringing you into that community. Again, we'd love to hear from you. We'd love to know what you think, how you foresee using this, how you do use it. And we are just at the beginning of this amazing adventure and just so excited about where we're at and the response that we're getting. So thank you for your very, very, very precious time today. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the XplorLabs.
Thank you very much, Kelly. That concludes our webinar for today. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to contact us via email at ulxplorlabs@ul.com. Thank you very much, everybody. Have yourself a very nice day.